I think technology can be a two-edged sword. I think, for the individual educator, it can be either empowering or it can be encumbering. I think there's not really a semester that goes by that I don't see an article that calls for the banning of this technology or that technology from the classroom because it's seen as being distracting or that it promotes passive learning. But if you think about it, students have been mindlessly doodling on their papers for years and doing all sorts of distracting things. So I don't think the technology really introduces any new problems. I think laptops, mobile devices, I think all those things are here to stay. I think the question is, do you see them just as distractions, or are they tools that we can perhaps leverage to increase engagement in the classroom? The SAMR model is an approach for integrating technology into the classroom. Each of the letters, SAMR, stands for a sort of a deeper extent of integrating technology into the learning activity. So S is substitution, A is augmentation, M is modification, and R is redefinition. The S and the A, that's substitution and augmentation, those are really just sort of functional improvements to the learning activity. So an example might be if you assign students a writing assignment that they could easily do on pen and paper. Substitution might be simply using a word processor to do that, and augmentation would be using some of the built-in tools like spell check or the thesaurus. They were things that you could have done, without the technology, but maybe just more efficiently with the technology in place. But really that modification and redefinition, those are sort of deeper levels of integration into the learning activity. And actually, they sort of create new learning activities that weren't even possible without the technology in place. So, going back to the essay example, a modification might be having students write a blog post that they could post on the web where people from all over the world could perhaps respond to that. I think a redefinition would be maybe it's not even a writing assignment at all. Maybe it's a multimedia presentation that the students put together that they could, again, post online, post to YouTube where people could interact with that. I like the SAMR model because, one, it's pretty simple, but also because it forces you to think deliberately about how you're integrating technology in the classroom. Is it just sort of decoration on top, or is it sort of a sort of deeper integration that meaningfully changes the learning process? I teach a course on professional foundations, and so as part of that, there are a lot of writing assignments, a lot of self-reflection exercises, and we've gradually replaced some of those writing assignments over time, creating some new assignments that actually where we expect students to integrate some aspects of technology. In the fall, where we previously had them write a group essay, we've now asked them to start writing a blog post with an accompanying infographic. And then something that we're piloting new this year is we're actually having them do a tweetorial, which is a series of tweets that sort of summarize some of the key points from their article, but also promote and encourage people to come read their article. In the spring section of the course, we previously asked students to submit an ethics case analysis where we give them an ethical dilemma, and then they have to kind of write up how they would address that dilemma. But several years ago, we started asking them to, instead of writing that up, to put a video together where they would act out that ethical dilemma and then propose a potential solution to that using some of the principles and theories that we discussed in class. I know that those examples are kind of on the M and R side of the SAMR model, and I know some faculty are looking for just some simple ways to integrate technology in the classroom. So I think one thing that's worked really well for me is using digital handouts. So rather than printing out handouts that you give to everybody in the classroom, you're providing them a handout in a digital format they can upload to Google Docs or Office 365, and they can actually work collaboratively on that. And actually, I can't take credit for that idea. I actually got that from the students. I was sitting in the back of the class watching another faculty member's session. I noticed that several students had the same document pulled up, and when I looked a little bit closer, they were collaboratively taking notes. So they were asking questions to each other, filling in gaps. When one topic was covered, one student would write it down, and then another one would take over. And I was like, wow, this is a tool that the students are already using. Is there some way that we can maybe leverage that? I think another simple and useful tool that faculty can use are the variety of polling platforms out there. I think one that we've found particularly helpful is a platform called Slido. So if you could bring up the Slido poll, it provides a variety of different survey types. So it's not just the traditional A, B, C, D sort of survey. You can ask word clouds. Another feature that we found really helpful, particularly for students who are concerned with asking questions in front of their peers, is the software will allow people to submit questions in an app or on the web platform, and actually other members of the class can vote on those questions. And so there may be a question that one person feels like asking, but then sees that it's gotten 7, 8, 10 votes from other members of the class. And I think that helps us identify not just questions an individual student has, but maybe something that we weren't too clear on, a key concept that maybe needs to be clarified. Definitely had some failures trying to implement technology into the classroom. And I think there's a few lessons I learned trying to do that. I think one, you can't be afraid of failure. I think anytime you increase the complexity of your teaching involving technology or not, I think it increases the risk of things going wrong. But I think the second thing I've learned is a little bit of humility goes a long way with the students. So, if something doesn't go right, just owning up to that and saying, all right, well, how can we make it better the next time around? Students aren't bashful for letting you know how you can make things better in the future. I think the third thing related to technology specifically is it's part of the process. I've not seen many things where technology completely solved a learning problem. And so I think it's just kind of stepping back and seeing, all right, what part of the process went wrong and how can we work around it? And I think a great example of that, several years ago when we still had the 2 campuses for the pharmacy school, we introduced this learning activity where we presented students with a case vignette that was a video, and then we asked them to come up with a solution as a group, and then we would debrief as a class. And unfortunately, the very small lag between our campus and the other campus meant when watching those videos, they were completely unintelligible. Like you couldn't, they were garbled, you couldn't really hear what was being said. So we felt strongly about that assignment was helpful, and the students on the local campus felt like it really worked. So we had to just think about, okay, how do we work around this problem? So what we instead ended up doing was we uploaded all the videos to the class website. We kept them hidden until the session started, but then we asked everybody to bring their devices, which many of them already had, as well as some headphones. And so when it came to watching those videos in class, we're like, all right, we're gonna give every 3 minutes to load up the videos on your own devices, watch them, and then we'll give you some time to work on those cases together, and then we'll debrief as a class. So it still allowed us to use the technology, still use the tool that we wanted to. It just took a little bit of working around that and being creative to make it work. I think for me, the real marker is whether the technology improves engagement. My goal is to maybe make the learning a little bit more meaningful, and I think academic performance can be difficult to show changes in, but I think if you can make the learning activity more engaging and more meaningful, that indirectly leads to improvements in performance over time. I think there are a few ways that you can capture engagement. My students will tell you that I survey them a lot to get their perspectives on how they thought things went. Are there ways to improve the assignments, the courses in the future? But I think it doesn't have to even be as formal as that. I think sometimes just taking a walk around the classroom and seeing, do students do they have Facebook pulled up, or are they shopping for shoes, or are they actually actively engaged in the learning process? Are they engaging in dialogue that's really related to the content at hand?